Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So for today's sketchbook session, I wanted to work with gouache once again, and the reason being is that there is bleed through on the left hand side, as you guys can see, and usually when there's bleed through like this, I like to cover it up with gouache. So you can see that this is from last week's session where I used alcohol markers, and there is a bit of ghosting. Luckily not too much because I did use alcohol markers, and usually whenever I use alcohol markers for any spread in my sketchbook to easily cover up any bleed through or the ghosting, I like to cover it up with gouache because gouache is fairly opaque and I can usually get a finished piece or finished drawing, or at least like what I would consider a little bit more finished, done in my sketchbook without worrying about the bleed through showing up too much. In previous sketchbooks, I would actually use like post-it notes and just paste them in onto the major areas that had like the most bleed through, and then just doodled on top with a kind of like I guess a needlepoint pen, because the ink would be so dark that you would only really focus on that rather than the bleed through. But let's talk about who I am drawing today, or painting I guess. I'm painting my OC Koji, so some people might not remember him because 99% of the time I draw only Masaki, but he is my other OC that I actually plan to be, I don't know, have more opposite characteristics to Masaki personality wise, I guess. So for the most part, I like to design OCs, at least more recently, to be a way for me to push myself to draw things that I'm not used to. Now, Masaki, I think, was a more successful way of for me to do that because I wanted to push myself to draw flowers more or foliage and focus on kind of more of that natural organic shapes and stuff for, you know, like nature stuff or like foliage basically. And I've been doing that more recently since I've drawn Masaki. But for Koji, he is kind of like a character that is a lot different for me in terms of drawing. In terms of like characters, I tend to draw people that are a little bit older, and I don't know, I never really drawn either like much older people, like maybe in their 60s plus, or people who are like 15 under. Even like growing up, I would always set my OCs to be at least like 16 plus. They're always like teenagers to like young adults, but I never had really like a kid OC, which is what I kind of wanted to have for Koji. So Koji's age is about 12 to 13. I don't really remember what I set his age at. I used to have like a whole thing for both Masaki and Koji because I only had them two at the time, and I would have like the notepad app on my iPod Touch open, and I would just like word vomit anything about the OCs and kind of rearrange it if I can later on to figure out like characteristics or potentially a story, because in the beginning I did write a little bit for like an intro to Masaki's story for the most part, because I wanted to treat it like a slice of life manga or anime where it's very much just like Masaki's daily life, but then obviously alongside with Koji and Sato, and then now Akemi and his family. But let's talk about Koji a little bit more. So like I said, Koji is kind of around 12 to 13, so he's kind of like very much just starting middle school kind of age, and I wanted him to be a very much active character because I don't draw Masaki in very kind of like dynamic poses because it doesn't really fit his character unless I want to go just a illustration route where it's just like a little bit more nonsensical. I don't really have to care about his like his background as much, I guess, if that makes sense. For Koji, he is in judo and baseball, so it will be easier for me to draw a little bit more of like action poses, as well as drawing a character that is on the younger side. Now, in the beginning, I actually drew him in a judo outfit, in a baseball outfit. I had a couple of doodles with those, and then suddenly I kind of just dropped it. So I would like to pick that up again sooner or later, so that I can get at least a little bit of practice. Luckily, I don't think I'm like defeating the purpose of it in a sense, because with Genshin characters, I've been still drawing some action poses here and there and getting in a little bit of practice, but I definitely want to be more practice driven this year, at least, just like in some areas at least. in my sketchbook so I can focus on it, because I've been kind of treating my sketchbook a little bit differently, where because I'm too precious with the paper, I feel like I haven't been drawing that much in the sketchbook. So hopefully I'm going to try to break that habit soon so that I can just freely draw on it, get this one finished, and then I'll move back into my other notebook designs and I'll use that one because the paper is much thinner, and because there's so many pages, I feel like I would feel less pressured to, I don't know, like conserve the paper, because I feel like that's how I'm treating this particular sketchbook, because the paper is much thicker and a little bit higher quality, like it's actual sketchbook kind of mixed media paper, and I feel like I don't want to waste it. So yeah, I kind of need to break out of that a little bit. So hopefully maybe if I doodle a little bit more and kind of focus on OC stuff in the sketchbook, maybe I can break out of that. But let's talk a bit about the process. If you've seen any of my other gouache videos, I pretty much use the same steps. So I do my sketch in the Pilot Color ENO in the color pink or red, depending on what lead I have that day. And then to make sure that they don't dissolve when painting with watercolor, I use the Pirsmacolor Col-Eraser in the color Carmine to kind of pick out the lines that I want to keep intact. And then I go ahead and do washes in watercolor to kind of plan out the colors that I would like to use, as well as it kind of just helps me figure out the sections, as well as for other paper, it kind of preps the surface a little bit for the gouache to cling on to. Then after that, I work right in with gouache, which you guys are seeing right now. I focus mostly on the face and the hair first, depending on the character, but then after that, I start to block in the rest of the stuff, as well as just trying to add in more detail. So as you saw, I actually started to paint Koji's sleeves with gray, and I forgot, because I don't draw him that often anymore, that his sleeves are actually red. Now, I think if you've seen previous drawings of Koji in my other sketchbook tours and stuff, this is not what I would consider his official outfit. I might swap it, but for the most part, whenever I have OCs, I like to have like one main outfit for them, and then they can have, you know, their own wardrobe or whatever I like to draw them in, as you probably seen with Masaki, because I kind of flip-flop between different outfits. But for Koji, he has very much a primary color scheme to his entire design. So it's kind of like more of a focus of gray, red, and blue. The primary color kind of just comes in with the fact that his hair is kind of more on the yellowy side. So that kind of just ties it in all together. But I think it's because in the beginning, his hair was a little bit darker and a little bit more olivey greenish colored into the blonde a little bit, but one of my mutuals on Instagram said like, oh, it's kind of cute that he has like a primary color scheme, and I'm like, maybe I should lean into that a little bit more, because he's on the kiddish side, maybe it kind of fits with his demeanor and stuff. Actually forgot to talk about this. So in terms of Masaki and Koji's relationship, they're very much like brothers, like kind of like found brothers, if that makes sense. I've always pictured them as both of them are only siblings or only children, only child in their family, and then their dynamic is very much just like a little brother, older brother dynamic. So that's how I always seen it as, because I feel like even though Koji is very much like gung-ho, a little bit hot-headed, he's very much naive and would like advice and like other people's opinions. He kind of cares about other people's thoughts and opinions and stuff. So I feel like that's where Masaki's insight comes in, because Masaki, I feel like he's a little bit more level-headed. He's still kind of clumsy, a little airheadish, but I feel like he's still very much on the calm side compared to Koji. Yeah, that's how I've always viewed them as. And eventually, once I have the time, I would like to write the story for them and maybe just do like little one-shots or something for them. I think it would be fun. That, or like in the future, even if I just want to make up like scenarios for them and just illustrate a few pages or something to get practice, I think that would be nice to do too. But I'm trying to think, what else did I want to talk about? Oh, let's talk about design. So like I said, I kind of changed this design a little bit. It's just kind of like the same for Masaki. Masaki's design wasn't like bang on from the start. I did adjust his color palette. For the most part, like his hair and his outfit remained the same. It's just like Masaki's color palette shifted to be a lot warmer, and I don't know, a little bit more green brown rather than like a baby blue and like a chestnut brown. But for Koji, there's like some features I like to remain for him. It's just kind of like the sequence how I draw his hair. I think I talked about this in a different video, but like his bangs sweep from the right to the left to the right to the left. That's how I like to draw it and how I remember it. But he also has freckles. He has a scar on technically the right side of his face, but it's on the left side of the sketchbook. And I used to put a kind of like a little bandage tape thing near the corner of his left eye, which will be the right eye on the sketchbook, and I got rid of that because practically, I don't know, for me I liked it as a design aspect kind of thing. It just looks like he's been roughened a little bit because I feel like he'd be the type to get into trouble a little bit and, you know, doesn't mind roughhousing with kids. But design wise, I just feel like in other situations, like the kid's gonna have to peel that thing off, like, you know, if you're gonna take a bath or if you're gonna wash your face, you're gonna rip that thing off. So it's like, I don't think it was necessary. So I feel like the scar on the lower side of his face makes a lot more sense. He also has a mole on his neck. And I think that's it. Actually, no. Another thing is that his ears are much more protruding out from his face, and they're a little bit larger compared to how I draw other characters. Or at least that's how I'm trying my best to portray them. Koji also has, or is supposed to have, a little bit more sharper eyes. I'm still kind of combating that a little bit because I want Koji to still have more of like a kid-like face. I just don't know how sharp I want his eyes to be, and I feel like it's just me struggling to draw his irises to be a lot smaller. But yeah, for the most part, gouache painting done, and I actually quite like it. I think it just looks really cool with how poppy the colors are. Like I said, this isn't his usual outfit, so one day when we draw Koji a little bit more, maybe I'll talk a bit about it. But the little side doodles are done with water-based markers, and I wanted to do that because I wanted to fill up the space on the right side. Because like I said, I don't think I mentioned this because I'm doing this voiceover like 3 times in a row because my brain is that scattered. But I only felt kind of up to doing one painting with gouache because of how slow I work, and I didn't really want to do any smaller doodles with gouache because I know how frustrated I'm going to be if I did do that. So instead I did do the other ones with water-based markers just to fill up the side and just kind of be done with the spread. And yeah, I think that's it for the most part. I tried my best to pick colors that would work. I do struggle with his color palette a little bit, as you can see. So the one that I'm working on right now is such a derpy doodle. I wish, I don't know, maybe, I can't promise this, but I'm gonna say next week, I am going to do like a full spread of Koji, just Koji, not for like a sketchbook video, but for an iPad video, so we can really flesh him out a little bit, because no matter how much like I've drawn him, I think he turns out the derpiest out of all my OCs. Like Maseki, I've drawn him like a gajillion times, but I feel like out of the gajillion times, it's not enough derpiness to combat how derpy I draw Koji sometimes. So yeah, I'm gonna try my best to draw Koji as much as possible so I can get used to him again. Because I don't want to keep butchering him. I really don't. I feel like Sato I butcher every so often too, but I feel like it's usually her hair and her outfits rather than her face. But for Koji, I butcher his face quite a bit. So yeah, I'm gonna try my best to get that sorted out for myself. But I think that's it for this session though. I definitely want to do some more sketches of my OCs in my sketchbook, like I said, to help myself break out of it. But I feel like I'm gonna stick with pencils and pencil crayon maybe, so I don't feel too compelled to make more finished looking things, because I'm looking at my sketchbook right now. A lot of it has gouache. Even next week's session has gouache, because I already filmed it. But yeah, I feel like because I paint with gouache, sometimes I only do the one figure or face or one person for the whole entire spread and then call it quits, because that takes me a long time, so I feel pooped by the end of it, and I feel like me stopping so abruptly would actually prevent me from wanting to keep continuing in my sketchbook. So hopefully me working probably with just pencil and stuff will push me to do that, because I always enjoy working with pencil, and the pencil on this paper is no exception. So it's super smooth and super thick, so it's like it makes it quite easy to actually use graphite on this sketchbook paper, because I feel like the last time I used pencil was for the Kave doodles, which I still think they look kind of cute. But yeah, we'll see. I might want to paint somebody with gouache though from Genshin, because it's been a while and I always love their designs. But yeah, here's Koji, my other OC, my youngest of my OCs, and I wish I treasured him more. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's painting session / doodling session on the side, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!